Here's our lower pivot kit for the 2nd and 3rd gen Tacomas. It's a great upgrade, pushes your tires forward, a lot stronger, comes with skid plates, and now we're getting ready to do an install on the 2nd gen Tacoma. We got the front end pretty much torn apart, inner fender's mocked up, but we're kind of concentrating on the front end. Noah here is going to start whacking off all the lower arm pivots, bump stop mounts, and get ready to do the lower pivot install.
All right, so as you can see, we got the lower pivots cut off. I kind of got most of the frame sanded and kind of shaped down to where we could start locating our lower pivots. We're going to start out with locating this rear bolt. It's an M8 bolt. It's going to locate the rear pivot back through this tab. And so that actually locates it onto the frame. So we're going to start with that. We're just going to bring up this lower pivot to the frame. Going to line it up through the bolt hole. I'm just going to thread it in by hand here. And I've got power tool right here. Just going to loosely kind of throw the bolt up there. So we still have some play with it, so we can kind of play with locating the actual lower pivot to the frame. Okay, I got both sides of the lower pivots up to the frame right now, just using our locator bolt. Now I'm going to take our two 12mm stock skid plate bolts. They're going to go up into these tabs, up into this crossbar on the frame here. So I'm going to start by doing that. Take this other one. We're going to take our 5/8 socket head cap screw, and we're going to take this brace plate. We're going to put it in between the lower pivot, and then it should thread into the welded boss that we have in this main tube for the actual lower pivot. And I threw some grease on these bolts. You definitely don't want to strip out the nut that's in here. So it's always good to have a little bit of grease. Be easy with the threads. And so this piece is going to locate and weld right here, just for some extra support. Again, go nice and easy. So that's basically the gist of bolting the lower pivots on. Now we're going to get to the portion of where we fit the lower pivot, because you're going to see right here that we need a jack to bring this thing up to form into the actual frame to weld it. So we don't want any gap here. We're just going to try to get that gap as minimal as possible so that we can get these burned in, and yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, so with the lower pivots bolted loosely into the spot that they're going to go, it's now time to fit them. Fitting's super important. We want the best fit possible so that we can get the best weld and penetration possible to the frame. So it's okay to take your time on this. There's really no rush. All that really matters is that weld being good and attached to the frame. So as you can kind of see here, we have a big gap in our lower pivot to the frame right here. So we definitely want to resolve that. The way we resolve it is we'll take a paint pen and kind of mark where the lower pivot is contacting onto the frame. So with a paint marker, I'll mark it exactly where I need to sand on the frame. There's some back here as well that we need to sand away. So we're gonna take this side apart, we'll get to sanding, and then we'll refit it up to see how it looks. It's super important that you do not grind anything on this lower tab back here. This takes a special plate that allows a plate to come in here and basically box this whole section in here. So we do not want to take material off of here. I can mark it with a paint pen so it's easier to see. Or down here which is already touching the frame. So again, super important, we do not touch those areas. All other areas are okay to touch, to sand. Now that I've got the lower pivots kind of fitted up here, I want to make sure that the actual pivot kit is square to the truck. So this is really simple. You could take an angle finder, or you could take a level, just like a normal bubble level that's got a magnet on the side or on the bottom of it. In this instance, I'm going to use an angle finder. And so basically what we're looking for here is less than a ½ degree of being square. So I've squared it off on this rear cross member back here. I've set it at 0. And so what we read here, we're about 4/10 of a degree, 3/10 of it being within a degree of being square with that rear cross member back here. So in my opinion, this thing should be good to go to weld up. So yeah, I'd say we're pretty square here. Next portion is going to be making sure that we sand everything where the lower pivots are going to actually weld to the frame. We want to make sure we get all the paint and all the crud off, so we don't get any impurities in our weld here. So let's go move on to that then. All right, so now we got our lower pivots in their main spot right now. We took the angle finder obviously and made sure that they're square with the frame. So now we're at a point to where we can start tacking the actual lower pivots onto the frame. So we're gonna start doing that. There's also these plates. I like to tack the actual lower pivots on the frame first before I put these in, but it's crucial that we put these in once these are tacked on. And so these plates are basically just gonna box in this pivot section of this cross member. And so they just slide back into this little slot back here. I'll take something. And so these plates will basically enclose this whole area, and then we can tack those in as well. This customer's got a 4-wheel drive truck. So in this case, he's gonna be running our 934 converted CV axles. So with these 934 CVs, obviously the CV is bigger than what stock is. So we do have to cut out this little section on the frame right here. And I'll draw it out with a paint pen so that it's easier for you guys to see. But it definitely will come in contact if we do not cut this out. So it's important that we're gonna do that before we weld on our lower pivots, just so it's a little bit easier to get to. But once that's cut out, we have a little plate that just goes over it, and then we'll just weld that thing on there, and then test fit and make sure this thing clears that, and we should be good after that. Okay, so I just got my rough cut done here for our CV clearance here. These are the overlay plates that I'll just tack onto right here. Pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. Since it is a rough cut, I'm gonna sand it and kind of shape it to kind of fit this piece, but this is a good start to start with here. This is the inner side to our 9034 CV. We use this just to make sure that our CV will clear with our clearance right here. This is something we use at home, or if you're installing these yourself. All you really have to do to get these in and out nice and easily is just take this C-clip off. And instead of having to pound in the shaft every single time to make sure it fits the lower pivots, you can pull this clip off. It's a little tough. Just like that. And so that'll allow you to just slide the CV in and out of the differential here without having to interfere with that clip. Because once these things are in, they're kind of pretty hard to get out. All right, so we just got our pivot kit wrapped up here. All we have to do is really just locate the lower control arms on there and put in our cam tab bolts, and then that'll finish that up. For our next video, we're gonna be more working on the upper control arm double shears. We have a bypass mount that's going in along with our shock tower as well. You're gonna see some notching in the frame for our slide rack, but that'll be coming again in the next video. So please stay tuned. Come check out this Tacoma build. We'll see you next time.